Last season on the Challenge All-Stars. I got hurt falling into the water again. I quit because production wouldn't let me box Beth. I might have been married. I exceeded everyone's expectations. And I won! Hello, other people. Thanks for tuning in to DVR's, the channel where TV rules all. I'm Lizzie Frizzle, and this is the Recap Corner. Today, I'll be talking about the Season 2 premiere of the Challenge All-Stars. Before we get down to the nitty-gritty of the episode,
We're coming down to the nitty-gritty.
I just want to share some general thoughts. The first being that I freaking loved it. I thought the cast last season was fine, mostly good. But this new cast is basically perfect. Not only is it full of people from the challenge eras I'm most nostalgic for, but there are also people who only appeared once or twice in the show's earliest years, like before TJ was even there, which I'm also really excited about. The longer it's been since you've been on TV, the more I want you to be cast. Personally, I don't even really want to see anyone on All Stars who's appeared on a regular challenge season within the past 5 years. Except for Darrell, because Darrell is always welcome. Another thing I really liked is the location, which is Cancun. Lately, the main challenge series that still airs on MTV has taken this really, serious, high-octane turn. And I think maybe in an attempt to match that tone, they've started filming in much rockier, grayer, harsher environments, all of which are beautiful and visually interesting. But in my opinion, the challenge is meant to be a tropical, beachy affair. It's just more lighthearted, which is something the main series desperately needs. Because the past few seasons, it's leaned hard into these gritty, gimmicky themes. First, there was Total Madness, where the cast was forced to live in a sad bunker that barely had any working plumbing. And since then, there have been 2 back-to-back seasons about secret agents, complete with multiple Mission Impossible-style explosions in every episode, and tons of cheesy jargon, like calling the cast mansion headquarters or calling TJ handler instead of host. Altogether, it ends up weighing down the entire show. Look at how easy breezy TJ is at the Mission from the All-Stars 2 premiere when he's just a host again, versus here, how he looked at the Mission from the most recent Spies, Lies, and Allies episode. And it's not just TJ or the locations. Everything about the All-Stars spinoff is lighter. The casts don't take themselves as seriously. There are less self-righteous diatribes. The missions don't look like hollow shells of action movie trailers. Mostly what I'm trying to say, if you can't already tell, is that I've been pretty disappointed in recent regular challenge seasons. I'm having an especially difficult time with the one that's currently airing, Spies, Lies, and Allies. So the drastically different energy that's present throughout the entire All-Stars premiere was just really refreshing and joyful. And I know if I'm not enjoying the main series anymore, I can just stop watching it, except that I can't because the challenge is my favorite thing in the whole world that's not my dad, my boyfriend, our dog, or Survivor. The episode opens with some gorgeous landscapes that I assume are in Cancun or at least nearby, but who knows? Maybe they're just random stock photos. There are voiceovers from throughout the season playing underneath, and this one $250,000 sticks out to me. First of all, I think it's Katie's voice, but I'm not confident about it. Either way, she's talking about $250,000, which is half of the $500,000 grand prize. So I'm hopeful it's a tell that there'll be both a male and female winner this time. One of the only things I didn't like about the first All-Stars season was the single winner format, even though Yes is awesome, and I'm super glad he won because of said awesomeness, and also because he's the only person I could have stomached beating Darrell. I'm also hopeful that if Katie is urgently talking about the grand prize, it could be because she's in the final, which, admittedly, based on last season and her original challenge appearances, seems unlikely. But even if historically she hasn't been the best competitor, Katie was always one of my favorite cast members. I mean, she walked on a treadmill covered in itching powder for 3 hours. Then also said this, like many years later.
Don't laugh at me when I have a plunger in my bed, bitch.
The first confessional of the season comes from Tina, which isn't surprising. There was a lot of audience excitement about her return. And even though Fessy got disqualified from Spies, Lies, and Allies for face smushing, Paramount Plus and MTV love to reminisce about when Tina punched Beth on The Duel. It was part of a lot of their advertising ahead of the All Stars 2 premiere, and there's a clip of it literally a minute into this episode. Overall, I think Tina is kind of a controversial challenge figure. She participated in some really cruel, unconscionable behavior, specifically during Inferno 2, which honestly I thought might prevent her from being cast in 2021. But there's been buzz about her potential return since All Stars was just Mark Long posting text message screenshots gauging interest amongst former cast members about the possibility of filming All Stars. It's undeniable that Tina was a prominent figure during some of the challenge's most formative years, and for that reason, I'm also excited to see her return, but I do feel guilty about it. Also, when I was looking at her page on the challenge wiki, I noticed that the phrase "her ego grew bigger than Coral's double D's" is used in 3 different places. Which, like, what? Next, we're reunited with Brad. He calls himself one of the top tier competitors in the show's history, which, like, I guess he's definitely up there. But he never made the narrative impact that big characters like CT, Wes, or Johnny Bananas did. And he never made the competitive impact that guys like Darrell, Landon, and Jordan did. In general, I do want Brad to be on All Stars. Like Tina, he was part of the most influential challenge eras. But I could have done without him for another couple seasons since he just appeared on the main series a few years ago. Also, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend the show's 10th season, Inferno 2. It's currently on Netflix, and in episode 10, Brad erupts into one of the greatest drunken freakouts ever aired on the challenge, and probably on every other reality TV show too. We meet more of the cast, Jasmine, Darrell, and Tyler, all of whom I'm thrilled to see. We've already discussed my undying adoration for Darrell, but it can never be reiterated enough times. Jasmine is one of my favorite women to ever be on the show, and she and John A., who we'll meet later, are a more dynamic challenge duo than Wes and Bananas. There, I said it. Tyler won 2 of the 4 prior seasons he appeared on, and he eliminated Bananas in the first episode of The Duel, which helped stave off the years until Bananas completely and utterly took over the show. And for that, I am ever thankful to Tyler. There's a big chunk of the episode here that's devoted to introducing most of the rest of the cast, so I'm just going to go through them one by one in the same order the show does. Starting with Jody. Pretty much the entire cast looks like they've barely aged in the decades since they were last on TV, but Jody especially looks the same. Like, it is truly remarkable. I never understood why MTV stopped calling Jody. After she won the duel, she was never cast again. In her original seasons, she was really physically dominant, and was willing to mix it up a little bit on the drama and showmance fronts too. But her personality didn't play as largely on television as her castmates often did, which would be my guess as to why she stopped appearing. She's exactly the type of cast member I want to see on All Stars. Someone who contributed to the show in its prime, but wasn't on it long enough to grow tiresome. Another person who made an enormous contribution to the challenge, then disappeared from it forever, until now, is Leah, who appeared on only one season in 2004, but during it, she participated in, and lost, the most bonkers elimination of all time. During her intro, Leah mentions that she's raised an impeccably mannered son, which I don't expect to be important even one time throughout the rest of the season, but Leah clearly wanted it noted, so I am passing the message along. Next, there's Steve, who also only appeared once in his original challenge run. He's the first male cast member to ever win an elimination. He's also a professional hand model. If you ever see a close-up of a hand in a Modelo commercial, it could be his. Apparently, some think he looks like Jason Momoa, but I think that's just what people say now about fit men with long dark hair and beards. Tech is one of 8 people in the cast who also appeared on the first All-Stars season earlier this year. He went home tragically early in the 3rd episode, so I'm particularly pumped about his recasting. He's a charismatic confessionalist. He wears cool suits. He's got good comebacks.
You look wonderful, man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man.
You got that Pepto-Bismol coming out. Because I'm the shit.
What's not to love? I know I'm saying this about basically everyone, but Ayanna, despite only appearing in 3 prior challenge seasons, was another hugely important figure in the show's early years, and I'm really super excited that she's back. Ayanna's the first person in challenge history to be disqualified as opposed to eliminated. She had to deal with a whole bunch of bullshit in the season she got disqualified from, as well as in her original Road Rules season, Semester at Sea. Ayanna was always a strong confessionalist, which doesn't seem to have changed based on this episode. And she was just good at making memorable TV. Like this moment from Battle of the Sexes 2 that's shown during her intro.
I slept in my uniform last night because I wanted to win today. But nobody stepped up today.
Sophia was also on Battle of the Sexes 2. It's the only challenge she ever competed in, and she made the final, which puts her into an elite group of contestants. Based on the first mission, which we'll talk about in a little bit, it unfortunately doesn't seem very likely that Ayanna will make it far into the season, but I really hope I'm wrong because I'd love to see her and Sophia form a Battle of the Sexes 2 based alliance that helps both of them make the final. The last person we meet in this first wave of introductions is Janae, who's another one of the 8 cast members that appeared in the first All-Stars season. She performed really well that entire season and placed 3rd in the final, which I don't think anyone was expecting her to do. So I'm really excited to see how she builds on that success this time. She's already off to a pretty good start by correctly assessing that an easy way to get on Tina's good side is to butter her up with compliments. They're talking and Tina's like, I don't even remember the last time I was on a challenge, even though I think she probably does. And then Janae is like, oh, I know, it was during this season and you did this cool thing on it, and I remember because I'm a big fan of yours. I just liked it. I thought it was a smart social play. So then TJ shows up, not to deliver bad news, as he often does, but just to welcome everyone. He tells the cast, you can never outrun your past, so be ready for anything at any time, which feels like a thesis for the whole season, but is also kind of meaningless because everyone's challenge past is so different that there's no way to incorporate them all in any kind of coherent, concise way. And also that some of these people are reappearing on television in 2021 is kind of proof that you can outrun your past, but I'm nitpicking. Up until now, the cast had been hanging out at like a little beachside waiting area with a bar, but now they're released unto the house, which also has a bar, I assume. There's something about watching reality TV contestants all charge into a mansion and scout for bedrooms that just makes me smile. It's one of the only components of a house reality competition show that hasn't really changed in 20 years. Also, shout out to Tina and Latarian for taking the CT approach, which is when you walk at a leisurely pace but still get a good room because everyone loves and or fears you that much. Okay, back to cast introductions. We meet Casey, whose opening line is about how most people call her one of the worst challengers ever, which might be true from like a purely physical, athletic, willing to participate in the missions standpoint. But Casey was also only 18 when she first appeared on the challenge, which is insane. She's 34 now, which is only a couple years older than Amber B was when she debuted as a rookie in the main series last year. We already talked a little about Katie, but she does get an official introduction here. She just says that she's been working out in preparation for this season and that she's going to take it seriously. But I'm pretty sure she said the same thing at the beginning of last season, too. Next, there's MJ, who I thought was going to become a major franchise face when I was a kid. Partly because he won his first season, even though it was Gauntlet 2, which has one of, if not the most poorly designed finals in series history. And partly because after that, he was brought in twice to replace disqualified contestants. The only other person to share that distinction is Cara Maria, who did eventually become a face of the franchise. But yeah, that didn't happen for MJ. In fact, the total opposite happened in that he was never cast again after Duel 2 when he was brought in to fill one of the voids left by the infamous CT Adam King I will smash your head and eat it fight. I think MJ's got a great chance to make it deep into this season. Firstly, he's just like a big dude, and I think people are going to be very wary of competing against him in elimination. And secondly, he seems really well liked by his castmates, which, if nothing else, is always better than the alternative. There has never been anyone else like Kahada on the challenge. He's one of my all-time favorite cast members. His name sounds like a D&D character. He has a completely different perspective from his castmates. And him beating Wes in the spool elimination on the Ruins was one of the biggest upsets in series history. Honestly, it's one of the Ruins' only redeeming qualities. 'Cause that's a dark season. Kendall's intro is pretty similar to Katie's. She wants to perform better than she did on the first All-Star season. Hopefully, people are nicer to her this time. It was never clear to me why so many of her castmates last season didn't like her, and I hated how much time they spent shitting on her during the reunion when she wasn't even there to defend herself. Finally, we catch up with Nehemiah, who's also reappearing from All-Stars 1. I have always adored Nehemiah. Honestly, the entire Real World Austin cast holds a lot of nostalgic value for me, but when I was a kid, I especially liked Nehemiah. And I'm still mad that Evan purposefully lost their Rivals 1 elimination because he had to, go back to school or something. Anyway, Nehemiah gives a toast, which is challenge for it's time to get really drunk. I guess that's the point of pretty much all toasts, actually. From here on out, it's a party, baby. Tech jumps in the pool naked, which prompts a lot of other people to jump in while wearing clothes, except Leah, who doesn't want to get her silk dress wet or take it off because she's Rachel Greening underneath. Ayana responds to Tech's skinny dip with the following confessional.
He pulls off his kingly garments and lets the scepter hang.
It's my favorite quote of the episode. We meet a couple more castmates, Melinda, another former Real World Austinite, and Derek K, who co-hosts the Challenge Mania podcast. The thing about Derek is that of all the challenge crushes I had when I was a kid, he was like the main one. So I'm always at least a little bit rooting for him out of nostalgia. But he was just on the first All-Stars season, and he was on the main challenge series as recently as 2017. So I wouldn't have been mad to see his spot go to someone else like Cyrus, Abram, Theo Vaughn, Brandon Nelson, or Noor. Please tell me what I have to do to get Noor on All Stars, and I'll do it. I'll do it twice. However, I am looking forward to watching Derek and Jody compete together again. Their friendship was a through line from their original Road Rules season all the way to Jody's last appearance on The Duel. And it seems like their past together will be at least semi-significant this season, since the editors have already reminded us about it and they won the first mission by working together. But we'll get there. We also meet Laterrian, who's the last recast from All Stars 1. It is needlessly difficult to watch the first 9 seasons of the challenge, but if you ever find yourself with the opportunity to watch the 4th season, Extreme Challenge, I highly, highly recommend it. Ayana and Laterrian are both on it, as are a bunch of other people I hope to see in future All-Stars seasons. It also includes what I think is the best mission in the entire series. I don't want to talk about it really because I love it so much. I'll just end up rambling about it in a stream of consciousness outpouring that'll probably end up including a few tangents to other challenge anecdotes I have similar levels of affection for, and it'd just be impossible to edit. But just know that the mission ends with this judge giving Laterrian a tiny commemorative gavel. More introductions. Janelle's origin show is The Real World Key West, which is definitely one of the most iconic casts in challenge history. Tyler, who's also in this All-Stars group, Janelle, Svetlana, Paula, and of course, Johnny Bananas, all came out of Real World Key West. Derek C is from The Real World Cancun, another very well-represented season. He, Jasmine, and Janae were all on it together. Derek also dresses up as Aneet, Tina's other half, and walks the catwalk for the cast. I really like this segment. It's old school challenge fun, and unlike the last time we saw someone play dress up on the main series, it doesn't involve Tori. Mission time! Everyone gets ready. Steve uses one of these thingies. I know nothing about it other than that it's a fitness thing and it's fancy, I think. Is it? Wait, let's look. Okay, so kind of expensive, but not totally unattainable. Oh shit, this one's a steal. Elsewhere, Derek K is like weirdly nosy about Nehemiah and Laterrian's handshake. I don't really know what to make of this scene. Part of me wonders if Derek is trying to establish a rivalry for himself in an attempt to keep getting cast, especially because he pushes the idea that his relationship with Nehemiah is adversarial again at the end of the episode. But another part of me thinks that it's not that complicated and that we're just being primed for Derek to nominate someone for elimination that Nehemiah doesn't want to compete against. On the way to the mission, we hear identical confessionals from about a fourth of the cast talking about how nervous they are.
Nerves are high. I got butterflies in my stomach.
I don't even know what I'm getting myself into right now.
It's been so long since I've actually done any sort of physical challenges.
This is my first challenge in 7 years.
They're just gonna do something crazy right off the bat.
My anxiety is pretty much steaming out my ears.
I'm fucking scared.
Among them, though, is Ryan, who's the only person we had yet to hear from. Yay for everybody getting a confessional this episode. So we get to the mission. We're oceanside and there are boats in the water. TJ explains the general format to the cast. Every mission will have 2 winners, 1 man and 1 woman, and missions will alternate between solo, partner, and team challenges. On days when partners or teams are required, the cast will always make those decisions for themselves. It's not explained how the individual male and female winners will be chosen during team dailies, but my guess is that it'll be kind of similar to War of the Worlds 2. Whichever team wins will choose amongst themselves 1 man and 1 woman to be the actual winners. If that is what'll happen, then I don't love it, but I'll hold off until we know for sure what the actual format is. This first mission is played in pairs. TJ tells everyone to quickly pick a partner. Tina wants to pair with Nehemiah, but he ignores her and chooses Ayanna instead. And that's as dramatic as it gets. So, not really dramatic at all. The mission is called Boarding Party. Pairs are transported in a fast little boat to a bigger stationary boat. Both partners pick up a skull and carry it across a wobbly balance beam to another, even bigger but equally as stationary, third boat. There's a small basketball hoop jutting off the side of the top of the third boat. The roof of the third boat? The ceiling? What's the top of a boat called? Each person makes a leap of faith off the top of the boat, which is a phrase someone on production must have just learned because it's come up multiple times on Spies, Lies, and Allies too. The goal is to dunk your skull into the basket as you're falling into the water. Fastest duo wins. Boarding Party is a pretty straightforward, simple mission. Maybe bordering on a little boring, but I'm also not surprised that production toned down the intensity of the missions. Remember the first one from last season? Some of the cast really struggled to get through it. And mostly, I don't mind the increased simplicity because not only were there 0 explosions throughout the whole thing, but also at least this early in the season, I'm still riding the high of getting to see all these people compete again. When Jasmine cried tears of joy at successfully making her basket, I teared up too. When Tina talked about Derek K and Jody being a power duo just like the old days, I felt this swell of nostalgic excitement. And I don't think those sentimental feelings are just gonna go away. At least not for 5 or 6 more episodes. The highlight of the segment is probably Tech and Casey's turn. The basket is too far away for Casey to reach, so Tech sort of tosses her toward it, but she still misses the basket anyway. There's also Tina calling her breasts hazards and Brad being overly instructional and a little unintentionally patronizing toward his partner Katie, which wasn't really a highlight as much as it was a moment that highlighted Brad's bad personality. Even if Boarding Party isn't a particularly memorable mission, the segment as a whole is super enjoyable. Though the editors do this thing I hate that they also do on Spies, Lies, and Allies, where they sort of quickly gloss over several rounds of competition while a pop song plays, but it's not nearly as egregious as it is in the main series. Afterward, TJ scolds the group for playing not to lose as opposed to playing to win. His specific grievance is with the way in which everyone crossed the balance beam, like doggy scooch style. Personally, I don't know what he expected when the only person who tried to walk across the beam normally, to quote Tina, swallowed his nuts. Tina also says this.
All right, I want to see you do it before you start talking smack.
Which I agree with too. But then TJ responds with this, which is also a very compelling argument. Regardless, TJ says that because he's so disappointed in everyone's performances, he's making all the eliminations doubles, meaning both a man and a woman will go home each time. But there's no way TJ just decided that on the spot. These shows take months of planning. They have a schedule to stick to. For the most part, the format can't just unexpectedly change on the fly. And I don't really understand why the show chose to reveal information in a way that's so obviously fake. Like, just tell us that the eliminations are doubles. That's fine. We all know the show has to be taped quickly or else most of the cast can't sign on. It's just needless to pretend like double eliminations are only happening because TJ didn't like the way everyone butt scooted to victory. Like I mentioned earlier, Derek K and Jody win, and unfortunately Nehemiah and Ayanna come in last after Ayanna's the only person who falls off the balance beam. I expected like a full circle moment about how if Nehemiah had agreed to work with Tina instead of partnering with Ayanna, then he wouldn't have come in last, but it doesn't happen. As the last place team, Nehemiah and Ayanna are sent directly to the arena, which is the name of the elimination grounds for the season. I don't want Nehemiah and Ayanna to go home first. I don't want anyone to go home first, which is a problem I've only had one other time when Survivor Winners at War was airing. But regardless, I do think that whoever loses the mission should always end up in elimination. So I'm both excited and relieved that that rule's in place this season. As for the winners, Derek K and Jody have to nominate 4 people, 2 men and 2 women, for possible elimination. Then the rest of the cast votes on which 2 will actually compete in the arena. After the format reveal, the cast goes back to the house, and then the episode just ends. We hear a couple cliched lines about how the game has officially started. Then we see Tech and Nehemiah just casually chatting. Then that's it. Season trailer and roll credits. Usually when the challenge ends an episode on a cliffhanger, I hate it. And I have to pace around the apartment and rant about it for a while afterward. But this cliffhanger is so nonchalant, it becomes kind of funny. And also, because I like this cast so much, I don't mind getting an extra episode with everyone. But on the whole, yeah, fuck cliffhangers, and I really hope they don't become a trend throughout the season. And that's the episode. Even though the ending was a little deflating, I thought overall it was a great premiere. I've got a few leftover thoughts that I'm just going to list out. I love the 44-minute runtime. The main series currently airs episodes that are an hour and a half long. And more often than not, the extra runtime is just padded with repetitive confessionals that are more grating than they are enlightening. Even though the cliffhanger sort of bugged me, I thought the episode was really well paced. And in the future, when we won't need 20 minutes of cast introductions, 44 minutes is plenty of time to tell a full, interesting story that includes all the components of a standard challenge episode. Kind of related to the pacing, the confessional distribution was pretty good too. Tina and Derek K had the most by a relatively decent margin. But that makes sense. You know, they're both big franchise faces. Derek won the mission. Tina hasn't been on the show in like a decade. The important thing is that everyone got at least one confessional. Most people got at least two, and several of those who had less were featured elsewhere, like in interactions with other cast members. There's a big disparity in the amount of past challenge success experienced by the cast. There are people like Darrell who won 4 consecutive finals, and there are people like Derek C who won 2 missions during a team season. Mostly, I like the disparity because it's what allows people who were good TV characters but not good at the challenge itself to get another chance and more screen time. But I also can't help but be like, is someone who only won 2 team missions in their entire challenge career really an all-star? I think about this with Drag Race All-Stars a lot too. Like, should there be an All-Stars season and then also another spin-off just for people who performed poorly the first time around and are seeking redemption? But I also don't want to oversaturate the franchise with 1,000 spin-offs. I'll be more curious about this once strategizing is further underway, but there are a lot of pre-existing relationships this season. Like I mentioned earlier, Real World Key West and Real World Cancun are both strongly represented in the cast. There's a pair from Road Rules Extreme, a pair from Road Rules The Quest. There's a contingency who all appeared on Extreme Challenge, a group from Battle of the Sexes 2, a group from the Inferno and the Gauntlet. We learned that Darrell and Janelle just used to know each other in their real lives because they both lived in the Bay Area, and Darrell tells us that they used to go to parties together. A lot of these relationships are in passive conflict with other relationships, and I think there's a lot of potential for some intense, complicated gameplay as people have to decide which allies they want to prioritize. This one is really small and doesn't actually matter at all, but on Spies, Lies, and Allies, there were 2 Corys, one rookie and one who's been around for years. But the show only used rookie Corey's last initial. So he had to be Corey L, while Corey W just got to be Corey. Now there are 2 Dereks in this All-Stars cast, K and C. And I really appreciate that even though Derek K is obviously a bigger challenge face than Derek C, both of their last initials are used. Great music throughout the episode. We got the best Backstreet Boys song. We got Shackles by Mary Mary, which is a reality TV anthem. Come On Feel the Noise played, and Creep by TLC was very cleverly used during the mission while the cast was scooching across the balance beam. And that's it. Those are all of my thoughts about the Challenge All-Stars Season 2 premiere that I could figure out how to convey coherently. My goal is to post a new recap every Wednesday since Paramount Plus releases the episodes at like 1 a.m. Thursday mornings. The next recap will probably be shorter than this one since there won't be any cast introductions to get through. But I won't make any promises because I could talk about the challenge forever and not get bored. See you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye. Oh yeah, also, what's up with the cast jerseys? Reebok? After years and years of Under Armour sponsorships, after some people might have painstakingly put together a whole waist-up plus socks Under Armour outfit, you switch to Reebok?